Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Have you ever thought about what truly drives a person to embrace the path of darkness? What if evil is not born, but shaped by pain, loss, and ambition? In today's video, you will uncover the tragic and chilling story of the boy who became Lord Voldemort. Tom Riddle, also known as the Dark Lord, he who must not be named, the very embodiment of terror in the wizarding world. He is the villain we all know, a ruthless sorcerer who stops at nothing to achieve his goals. But he wasn't always like this. Once, he was just a boy, one who learned, dreamed, and even had friends. At what point did he transform into the feared Dark Lord? Did the darkness take root in his childhood, or was it a decision he made as an adult? And what was the turning point that led him down this path? Let's unravel the mystery. Wrap yourself in your invisibility cloak and let's begin. The origins of Tom Riddle. Tom was born into a broken family. His mother, Merope Gaunt, was a pure-blood witch, a direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin. His father, Tom Riddle Sr., was an ordinary muggle, but their love was built on deception. Merope used a love potion to make Tom Sr. fall for her. When she stopped using it, he abandoned her, leaving her pregnant and alone. Weak and destitute, Merope gave birth to her son in a muggle orphanage, where she died shortly after. And so from the very beginning, Tom Riddle's life was marked by loss, abandonment, and a deep sense of resentment. A troubled childhood. Growing up in the orphanage, Tom was different. Strange things happened around him. Objects moved, animals obeyed his silent commands, and those who crossed him suffered misfortunes. He didn't just have magic, he had control over it long before he knew what it was. When Albus Dumbledore came to take him to Hogwarts at age 11, the young boy was not surprised. He already knew he was special. He just needed someone to confirm it. The Hogwarts years, a brilliant mind with a dark curiosity. Sorted into Slytherin, Tom quickly became the most gifted student of his generation. His intelligence, charm, and ambition won him followers, students who admired his power and his ability to manipulate others. But Hogwarts also gave him answers about his past. He discovered his connection to Salazar Slytherin and the existence of the Chamber of Secrets. He learned about Horcruxes, the forbidden magic that could grant him immortality, and in his 5th year he committed his first murder, using the basilisk to kill Myrtle Warren, later known as Moaning Myrtle. By the time he left Hogwarts, Tom Riddle was no longer just a promising student. He had already begun his descent into darkness. The birth of Voldemort. After graduation, Tom sought a position at Hogwarts, but Dumbledore refused him. Rejected, he vanished from the public eye, traveling the world in search of the darkest magic. He delved into forbidden knowledge, seeking ways to cheat death. When he returned, he was no longer Tom Riddle. He had transformed body, mind, and soul into Lord Voldemort. He gathered followers, the Death Eaters, and unleashed terror upon the wizarding world. The war had begun. What truly drove him to evil? Was Voldemort born a monster, or was he made into one? A combination of factors shaped his descent into darkness. Orphanhood and abandonment. He was never loved, never wanted. The pain of rejection festered within him. Pride and lineage, learning he was the heir of Slytherin, fueled his superiority complex. Unmatched ambition. He didn't just want power, he wanted to be the greatest sorcerer who ever lived. Resentment and rage. He despised his muggle father for abandoning him, and his mother for being weak. These forces twisted him into the Dark Lord we know. But the question remains, was there ever a moment when he could have chosen differently? Or was his fate sealed from the very start? Tom Riddle's transformation into Lord Voldemort was not a sudden event, but a gradual descent into darkness. It began with curiosity, grew into obsession, and ultimately consumed him entirely. His childhood had already set the foundation for his belief that power was the only thing that mattered. His time at Hogwarts merely refined his abilities and gave him the tools he needed to shape his own future. But the true turning point came after he left school. Denied a teaching position at Hogwarts, Tom turned to the one place where he knew he could gain knowledge and influence, the dark underbelly of the wizarding world. He took a position at Borgin & Burke's, a shop that specialized in rare, magical artifacts, many of them cursed. He used this job not as a career, but as a means to an end. Through it, he learned about magical heirlooms, enchanted relics, and most importantly, the weaknesses of those who owned them. It was during this time that he came across Hepzibah Smith, an elderly witch who possessed two priceless artifacts, Helga Hufflepuff's cup and Salazar Slytherin's locket. To Hepzibah, Tom was a charming and intelligent young man. She trusted him, saw in him something special. But to Tom, she was nothing more than an obstacle, standing between him and objects that held great significance. He murdered her without hesitation, stole the treasures, and vanished. The crime was blamed on her house elf, but those who knew Tom suspected otherwise. By then, he had already started shedding his humanity. His travels took him far beyond the borders of Britain. He sought out the darkest wizards, learned from them, studied forbidden magic that others feared even to speak of. He mastered spells that twisted the soul and defied the laws of nature. The more he learned, the more he experimented. The idea of Horcruxes had captivated him ever since he had first read about them in the Hogwarts library. Most feared even the thought of creating one, as it required the ultimate act of evil, murder. Tom did not fear it. He embraced it. He did not stop at one Horcrux. He was determined to split his soul into multiple pieces, ensuring that he would never die. 7 was the most powerful magical number, and so he decided that 7 Horcruxes would make him invincible. Each time he committed a murder, he tore his soul further, locking pieces of himself away in objects that he considered significant. Slytherin's locket, Hufflepuff's cup, Ravenclaw's diadem, and eventually even his own pet snake, Nagini. But the more he divided his soul, the less human he became. His physical appearance changed, growing more unnatural, his face becoming snake-like, his eyes turning red. He had gone beyond mere magic. He had become something else entirely. He no longer feared death because he believed he had conquered it. Returning to Britain, he gathered those who had remained loyal to him. They were no longer just students who admired his brilliance. They were now his devoted followers, Death Eaters, wizards and witches who believed in his vision of a world ruled by pure blood supremacy, who sought power above all else. They swore allegiance to him, marking themselves with a dark mark, a symbol of their loyalty and servitude. His rise to power was swift and brutal. He struck from the shadows, eliminating those who opposed him. The Ministry of Magic was infiltrated. The wizarding world lived in fear. He declared open war on Muggleborns and blood traitors, hunting them down, wiping out entire families. His influence spread like wildfire, and soon he was not just feared, he was worshipped. Yet, despite his power, there was one thing Voldemort could not understand: love. It was an emotion foreign to him, something he had never experienced and therefore saw as weakness. He underestimated its power, and in doing so, made his greatest mistake. The prophecy changed everything. A child born at the end of July, destined to have the power to defeat him. He saw only a threat, something to be eliminated before it could grow. He did not consider that in trying to prevent his own downfall, he would set it in motion. The night he entered the potter's home in Godric's Hollow, he believed he was ensuring his immortality. Instead, he unknowingly sealed his fate. Lily Potter's sacrifice created magic more powerful than anything Voldemort had ever encountered. Her love protected her son, and when Voldemort cast the killing curse, it rebounded upon him. The unthinkable happened. He was destroyed, not by a great wizard, not by a battle of magic, but by an emotion he had spent his life disregarding. He became a wraith, a mere fragment of what he once was, forced into hiding. For years he existed in the shadows, clinging to life through the remnants of his Horcruxes. He wandered, weak and helpless, until the opportunity for resurrection presented itself. When he finally returned, he was more terrifying than ever. His followers flocked back to him. The wizarding world trembled once more. But despite his regained strength, he was no longer invincible. The very Horcruxes that had once protected him had become his greatest weakness. One by one they were destroyed. Piece by piece he was undone. In the end, Voldemort met his fate at the hands of the boy he had once sought to kill. The prophecy had been fulfilled, though not in the way he had expected. He fell not in a grand battle, not in a display of magical superiority, but because he had made a fatal mistake. He had relied too much on fear, too much on power, and had never understood that true strength came from something he had never possessed. Was Voldemort doomed from the start? Could he have chosen a different path? Or was he always meant to become the darkest wizard of all time? Perhaps in another life, had he known love, had he been given kindness, he might have been someone else. But in the end, he was what he had made himself, a man who sought to conquer death, only to be destroyed by the very thing he feared the most.